Hello and welcome back to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker. Thank you so much for joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it. And as we try to navigate this Ida recovery, we look to the people who fight for us every day. And I can tell you one of those people joining us now, Tanner Magee, Louisiana State Representative. Thanks so much for joining us.
No, thanks for having me on. It's my pleasure.
People are concerned. They're a little worried about all of this damage and devastation. Tell us what some of the people are asking you and what their big concerns are.
Right now, the biggest concern is some sort of temporary housing solution. I mean, that's kind of, particularly in Chauvin, Dulac, Lower Dularge, Montague, and Pointe-aux-Chenes. When you go in those communities, that's all people are really talking about right now is what are we going to do? When is FEMA coming? When are they going to provide us with houses? That's been the majority of what I've been hearing the last week. Early on, it was, water and the very bare necessities.
Right.
I think they feel comfortable that they have those necessities or there's accessibility to those things. But now it's definitely that temporary housing.
And so what is FEMA saying? Do we know what they're saying or what they're talking about? Where are we from a governmental standpoint about providing some of that support?
That's a great question. And depending on which FEMA representative you talk to at which minute of the day you talk to them, you get a different response.
Sure.
And you also get a different response on what any holdups are. It's like a revolving circle. I mean, I hate to say this, but when people hate bureaucracies, it's like FEMA embodies all those bureaucracies that we all really dislike.
Right.
So right now where they are is they initially told me on a conference call about 2 weeks ago that it'd be at least 30 days before we had any kind of trailer unit. The last time, I think you saw in the CBS report, they're saying not till November. But
wow.
Now, though, what they're doing is they've basically notified the state that their regulations do not allow them to come with any kind of immediate mobile home unit right now. So they're going to allow the state to do it.
Okay.
And then with the expectation or the agreement that FEMA is going to reimburse the state for doing it. So the state issued a request for proposals, which if you're not in government and you're not familiar with it, it means like we're asking everybody who's in this world, send us what you can do.
Right.
They put it out a week ago or last Thursday, and then it closed Tuesday at 5 p.m. from various providers. They selected Aptum, which is used to be Shaw, then got bought out by CB&I. It's a Louisiana-based company that's been bought out a couple of times.
Right.
Now it's changed its name or been conglomerated into Aptum to manage this project.
Okay.
So the state's going to be, it's the state's project, but Aptum's going to be managing it.
Okay.
Those proposals now are, how many trailers you have. And I've seen some of the proposals, everything like I got 2 trailers, to we can do 500, we can do 1,000 kind of deal. Realistically, they're looking to get trailers moving by next week.
Oh my.
But I haven't got any firm commitments to that deadline. So I don't want to oversell what's expected. But FEMA's never done this before in any state in disaster. This is the first time they've given over their authority to bring in temporary housing to another entity, particularly the state. So this is particular to us, and basically from us, all of our efforts on the parish state level, fighting with them to try everybody from Graves, Scalise, Troy Carter. I'm leaving people out, President Dove, everybody, council people calling. I mean, it's been a full effort. I know that I'm leaving people out, so please don't get upset if I didn't mention your name.
Right, but again, it's all of the people in leadership at different levels.
At different levels.
Kind of saying, this is the need, what are we doing about it, how do we do it? I got to say, knowing how these processes work and knowing that it took a little time for FEMA to be able to say, yes, we're going to let the state do it. Now they're letting the state do it, appointing someone and taking that time because, we got to get bid options. I mean, that's part of our process.
Absolutely.
We can't move forward because then we end up in trouble. Why'd you move so fast? It costs us twice as much money.
Absolutely.
This is your responsibility.
And so-and-so's cousin got the contract, and
it
was all a deal. It was all brother.
Typical Louisiana politics,
yes,
So we've got to avoid those kinds of things. But I got to tell you, if in fact we can do this, and I'm hopeful that we will, because I got to tell you, I've driven down past some of the tent cities, and it's as difficult to see as anything. It's as difficult as seeing our homes, and because you and I are sitting here with our homes gutted, and we know what that's like, but we don't know what it's like for our home to be not there.
Right, absolutely. No, I mean, you were just talking about this before we went on air that we're both fortunate that our houses are gutted, and
Yeah.
it's not because we have structures there, and we have a roof that may not work
Right.
up there,
Right.
but it's up there.
Right.
And that's a lot more than a lot of people have right now. And I do want to let everybody know that 3:30 today I'm having a conference call with the state and FEMA people to talk about timelines of delivery and when we can start firming up these expectations of when we can expect. So maybe the next time I talk to y'all, I can say, look, Keith, Tuesday we can expect the first trailer. Now, look, I want to also be clear, the state doesn't have the resources that FEMA has to provide like 20,000 trailers, right? They don't.
Right.
We just don't have it. People can argue with me all day long. I'm just telling you, we don't have it.
Right.
So the scale's gonna be smaller, but it'll be more immediate. And then FEMA staying at the November, 8 months out, they'll come with more resources if the state is unable to make those needs. It's kind of where FEMA has been.
And one of those things that I don't think people always understand is the FEMA process. We were talking a little bit about that last segment, and I don't know that people understand the FEMA process and why there's delays. Give us just maybe the snapshot of why and how that happens.
Yeah, so what FEMA wants to do is FEMA does not want to be in the landlord business. They don't want to be in the construction business. What they want to be in is the giving you money business. And so they want to put you in a hotel, or they want to give you money to rent something that's already available. They want to use existing housing stock, whether it be hotels or current houses or current apartments, to put everybody in place. The problem we run into is Ida was so wide and such a big storm with so much damage, and we're in the center of it. If you look at Entergy's pole break numbers, double, triple Katrina numbers, double, triple Laura numbers, there's no housing stock, there's no hotel stock available. And I think the closest hotel for people right now is like Mississippi, a proper place they can go. But FEMA doesn't want to move off of that ball. That's where they want you to be. That's what they want to do. And so they don't pivot very easily. And it's the federal government rules and regulations. And so they don't want to get away from that. And no matter what you do, no matter how you try to explain it to them, they're still trying to go down that path to provide that. And that's kind of, especially when it's hard, when you're so far away and you're at the center of the destruction instead of being on the outer banks of it. It's easier if you're in St. James to go find a hotel room and travel that. But here it's impossible. Huh. And so that's...
And have your kids go to school.
Right.
Absolutely. And get back to some sense of normalcy.
And so they look at like phase one, we do this. We're in the assessment phase. It's 1 to 2 months out. And this is how we provide, and this is how we do it. We've got Red Cross shelters. We have vouchers for hotels. We have vouchers for rental. That's how we do it. Then when you're phase two, if you still haven't fixed your house, then we can look at trailers. Well, phase two may be 6 to 8 months away. And that's kind of the problem we find ourselves in, is that we're not in FEMA's phase two yet. We're still in FEMA's phase one, and their solutions in phase one are inadequate. And we're just never going to get there.
And fortunately, with leadership and the great leadership in our area and the people that you mentioned earlier, y'all have been able to FEMA has said, look, the state can handle this. The state went in, offered for bids, because we have to have, everything's got to go for bid. And we have a company that's going to be able to provide some temporary housing, and we're hoping that that's soon.
Yes. And I think that's the thing, is the speed. It's really now about just procuring the trailers and mobile units and trying to find all the ones we can find over the next week or two and get them here immediately, getting them set up. And then the other part of FEMA, which I didn't get into, I meant to while we're talking to us, they don't want to put anything in a flood zone. They see we're still in hurricane season, and if they put anything in a flood zone, they're just putting their assets in a place to be destroyed potentially again. Wow. So they don't want that. And they refuse to do that. So that you got some kind of hard passes. So then you got to try and find some alternative sites that are still close to people's houses, that are not in a flood zone, and put trailers there and allow people to access back. So it's a lot more work than, or at least from my perspective, of trying to get FEMA to do the things that we want them to do, and a lot of conversations, submitting proposals to them, and then them picking them apart about why the regulations don't allow it. So it's frustrating, I know.
Right.
And I know it's frustrating for me, and I go back to the house that me and you talked about with the roof that doesn't have any walls inside, but I know it's even more frustrating if you're a person who's living in a tent, or you're living in worse conditions than I am. I can only imagine, and I get that. But again, FEMA doesn't get that. FEMA's a big government entity that is doing natural disasters all the time. I think there's also some dehumanization that takes place when that happens.
Right. Now, making it a little bit more humanizing, let's talk a little bit about maybe what we learned with Laura and Lake Charles, and what some people just need to be aware of with some of the frustrations we're dealing with.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with both elected officials and attorneys in Lake Charles, and their response, and particularly with the insurance companies after the fact. Insurance companies, and nobody wants to hear this, they make money by denying or delaying your claim. And also, particularly on delaying your claim, the more frustrated you get, the more likely you're going to take a lesser value. So they're going to lowball you. They're going to give you not what you want because they can do that to save them money. They assess how much the claims are. I mean, I heard an estimate in Lake Charles was like $9 billion. I think to date they've maybe paid $4 billion right now. So they know that what they're doing, it's all part of a strategy for them to save money on the back end. I hate to tell people and to public this, but this is what we're in for. I mean, This is the game that's going to be played. They don't make money by making you happy, really. They make money by delaying your claim, providing you as little money as they possibly can. And
so we need people to stay convicted, stay on it, get with your insurance agent, talk with them, work with them. And if you really need to, then we've got legal possibilities and capabilities to kind of make sure that you are made whole by what your policy should allow you for.
Absolutely. I mean, and look, they're going to tell you your policy says all kind of things that it may not says. And you need somebody to look at the policy itself and make sure that that's what it actually says and that the coverages are what they're supposed to be, too, if you get denied on stuff. We are lucky in one aspect of the insurance thing, Katrina, they had a real question whether it was flood damage or wind-driven rain. Majority of the houses in Terrebonne, we know what they are. Wind-driven rain. So they can't deny you under the flood thing. That's the one silver lining of this storm, is that there was such little flooding that we know where those claims are.
And again, that's thanks to our elected officials. It's thanks to our leadership and all of the levee districts for what they did to prevent any real problems with flooding. We had wind and rain event that is a natural disaster, and that's what we're dealing with. And we need to hold those insurance companies accountable to make sure that people get it made right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tanner, I can't thank you enough for coming on and doing your research and finding a way to work around what FEMA is being able to do and what y'all are doing. Thanks again.
Thank y'all for having me on.
Well, we appreciate it. And again, this is Tanner Magee. I promise you he cares. And so if you've got any questions or concerns, I know you can reach out to he and his team. You can reach him through us here at HTV. We want to make sure that people get what they need and deserve, and we're going to find a way to be able to do that. So we thank you so much for joining in. We're going to take another break. When we come back, more Bayou Time as it's scheduled.